Hello and welcome to Getting Naked with Happiness with me, Stephen Liu. Each episode, my guests will share personal stories of resilience and bear their emotions and minds openly. Learn from the wisdoms that they have gained through their journeys and create your very own well-being toolkit. My guest this week is the founder of his own successful alternative low-carbon footprint building company called Custom. And he also co-authored 3 plant-based diet cookbook. So in this episode, we talk a little bit about minimalism and how can we apply this lifestyle to our mental world, not just to the physical world. So Chris is going to share one key practice that he does every day to keep his mind focused, and that is taking cold showers. I definitely thought that it sounded like torture, but you might be convinced to try it after this episode.
Minimalism to me is about surrounding yourself by less so that you have the space to appreciate more or for more to come to you. So I think a lot of people think immediately that it's just having less things in your home. And that is definitely a part of it. But it's more than that, because you've also got to look at the things in your home and you really need to decide whether you believe it to be beautiful or whether you believe it to be useful. And if it's neither of those things, then, you don't need it, basically. So you've got to look at then all of the other parts of your life in the same way. You need to be looking at your relationships in the same way, friendships. Then you can start, when you get good at it, this is where the real Christmalism comes in, I think. Then you can start kind of thinning down your emotional responses. So we live in a society where people get stressed out a lot and they get upset often about small things, which isn't healthy. Nobody wants to be doing that. So I have, maybe between 3 or 5 things that are really, really important to me. Let's say if it was 5, it would be my health. And I would say that's my spiritual and physical health. Then it would be my relationship, being a parent, being a father, then, being a partner, then work and friendships, and actually hobbies. Maybe I've got 6. So if I'm feeling like I'm getting a little bit angry or I can feel some anxiety coming on, what I want to do is try and process it in such a way that I'm able to say, is it to do with any of these things that are really important to me? And if not, let's not bother having an emotional response to it. So it's kind of minimalizing my emotional responses as well. And it's not something that's just as easy as saying, I'll just not have an emotional response to that. It takes practice, but kind of is really good. It clears a lot of mental clutter, which, we have so much of. Cyber clutter as well. I mean, I'm on Facebook, but only in a tiny amount. And I have 2 outfits. So I love the whole clothing side of minimalism. I have 2 outfits. I have a pair of black jeans and a grey jumper. And I have a pair of blue jeans and a blue jumper and some t-shirts. And that's it. That's all I wear. So when my black jeans and grey jumper that I'm wearing today finally gets so dirty I can't wear it anymore, I just change it for the blue jeans and the blue jumper. It's quite exciting on that day because it's kind of every 2 or 3 weeks. But that's it. 2 outfits. Don't bother changing into anything else.
How do you even get that? How do you even get that in the first place? Like before you subscribe to Christianism or like your philosophy, and how do you even get that? Because I suppose that you led a normal life. Not saying that this is not normal, but in a way that societal life. And what transpired you to change?
There's been a number of markers in my life that have inspired change. And they weren't always, they didn't just go from, it wasn't just a kind of upward, it wasn't all sort of an enlightening journey. I haven't explained that particularly well because sometimes you end up going backwards, don't you? I think for me, my 20s, I just traveled my whole 20s, and I was a lot of the time I was on my own with a surfboard and a hammock, and that was a really enlightening part of my life. You know, I really felt like I knew who I was. I really felt like I understood human nature, and I felt like I understood how to be joyful and how to be, you know, how to be a useful person. But then that all changed in my 30s. You know, I decided I wanted to have children, and you know, I met my now ex-wife, and all of a sudden I absorbed myself into the UK rat race. Right at the bottom of the ladder as well, because I'd been traveling, I didn't really have any skills. I didn't have any specific skills anyway. So I came back to the UK. I had my first child on the way, and we had nowhere to live. I had no job. Neither of us did. So we were just looking for a place to live. Then I was working as a labourer, and then that whole everything that I'd learned about myself in the 20s, like I felt like I'd created a persona in my 20s that I really liked. You know, there was this sort of guy that traveled, fairly laid back, you know, not a part of the rat race, not a part of the system. And then all of a sudden in my 30s, I'm just beginning, you know, and then you know, within a couple of years, I'm setting up my own business, my own building company, and then I'm getting into a lot of debt. I'm living beyond my means. I'm getting stressed out, and you know, by mid-30s, I just didn't know where it had all gone wrong. I didn't recognize myself, and you know, that all came to a head because I got very stressed out. I had a couple of panic attacks, which was very unlike the person that I'd been prior to that. It was a couple of conversations with my mother that calmed me down. And I just had to, in fact, there was a very good friend of mine had come to stay as well. And I can remember talking to him out on the sort of deck of the house I was living in, quite a big house. And he just kind of looked at me and he said, Chris, don't you think you're living a little bit beyond your means? And that seems like a very harmless thing to say, actually, now when I say it in the context of this podcast. But at the time, it was equivalent to telling an alcoholic, don't you think you're drinking a little bit too much? You know, it's hard to take because it's the truth. And that inspired me to start breaking it down. It was tough. I was in a lot of debt, and my marriage was breaking down, and my business partner, everything was breaking down, you know. It's that moment, isn't it, when you've got to break down what's not right in order to start anew. It's like the forest that burns down in order for new life to sprout up. So there was probably a 2-year process of dismantling it, during which time I had to work a lot. I had to work weekends, I had to work late nights, to get out of debt. And it was, I think, I then moved to the Isle of Wight with my now ex-wife, and we split up here, and that really sparked a new change. That was about 8 years ago, and that was really when I started to really view the world in a more spiritual and emotional nature, in a way, and really start thinking about who am I? Not just who am I, but who do I want to be? You know, what do I want to do? What have I got to offer? You know, all these important questions that, you know, now I know that me and you, we ask these a lot, and we ask other people a lot, and we're involved with courses. But like you said, there has to be a point when you start from that, you know. And yeah, then from there, I've just really, in many ways, been going from strength to strength, you know, bringing up my children, successful business, you know, going vegan, meeting my partner, who's now my soul partner, learning how to be in a long-term relationship, learning how to be in love, not being scared to get my heart broken, you know, and like there's so many lessons. And I do love learning. And now I do, you know, every day I do stuff, all sorts of things. And I think some people mistakenly think that I live some kind of charmed existence these days. But that's not the case, you know. Like literally from the moment I wake up, I'm working on, I'm this is the type of phrase that sometimes when you put words on it doesn't work, but it's to do with being and doing. I work on being. Does that even make sense? It doesn't necessarily in the environment that we now live, in a Western world. It's not that easy to do being. There's another crazy sentence, do being, but it's not that easy. So from the minute I wake up, I try and really become a part of it, try and really feel like I'm a part of the whole. I believe that we're all a part of the whole. It's all right. It's one thing to believe it, but to feel it it requires, all these other things, of which I have a few, and I'm sure you have a number of them as well.
Tell us more about, what's it like focusing on being, as if that you have stated, and you stated by starting an intention of like focusing on an experience that you would like to focus on. How do you do that?
Well, I do one thing every day and I do lots of things actually, and I'll go into those afterwards. But this one thing is very, very cerebral. This is a way that almost anybody could leap into the world of being by simply having the willpower to do it. And that's the cold water swimming. So like we discussed before the start of this podcast, that today I've been out. In fact, when I joined this podcast, I was still shivering because I literally came from the sea. And there's a storm, there's tons of storms on in the UK at the moment. So from the moment you go down there, you shift into a state of being. You just can't not, because the whole experience is so intense. It's, the connection with Mother Nature is all around you. It's a complete immersion into Mother Nature. You get some nerves because you're about to drop into cold water. And then when you're in the cold water, your body switches into, not so much when you become accustomed to it, but still to a degree, where you switch into this fight or flight sort of mechanism as the body prepares itself for death by cold water, if you know what I mean. Now, in that environment, it's very difficult to think about anything else. It's very difficult for you to be swimming in the cold water and to be thinking about a problem that you have in life, or to be thinking about even what you're going to do when you get out. Everything becomes very in the moment. Everything becomes very immediate. Yeah, it becomes very being. So I love that about cold water swimming. I love that I can put myself into a situation where being isn't an option. You're just being. There's nothing else you can really do. Outside of that practice, then when you do it daily, you're able to sort of bring the lessons that you're learning by immersing yourself into cold water into your other areas of your life. One thing that you're really practicing is your willpower. Every single day that you go down there, you don't really want to go in. You want to go in because you want to get the benefits of it, but your body has an intelligence of its own, and that is saying, we don't want to go in the cold water. So it requires willpower. So every day you get to practice your willpower, and by training your willpower, you get to improve your willpower. And then that willpower can be used in so many other parts of your daily life.
Oh, I like the part.
I think the other part of it as well, that's really interesting. There's a philosophy, I don't know whether it's a Buddhist or whether it's a Taoist philosophy, and it's the beginner's mind, or it's the philosophy of the beginner's mind. And I think it's used in many religious practices, where by praying all day or by doing a certain practice all day, by the end of the day, you're wise. And with the cold water swimming, once you've done your cold water swim, you feel strong. You feel like a superhero. You feel like a cold water swimmer and nothing can touch you. But then once you wake up again in the morning, you start all over again. And it's you know, because you get down to the water and you're like, oh God, I got to do this again. I don't feel so strong now all of a sudden before the swim. So this philosophy is what we all should be employing more of in life, because what it does is it kind of checks the ego, and it stops us getting complacent, and it stops us, like, at the end of every day, oh yeah, I've learned that, you know, I've learned this lesson, or I understand that, or I'm a better person because of this. And then we wake up and we carry those same emotions, when really we should start each day as a beginner in a learning process, and just live and be and learn our way through each day, which we don't do that. That's not something, you know, that's reserved to these other religions. But I definitely get to experience that on a daily basis.
I love
You know, some
this.
days you go down and you're terrified.
Yeah, I mean, for this comes to the part whereby you stay near the sea and you are able to swim, right? How about what were you advise for those who stay in the city dwellers, like they have to take a cold shower every morning? And I've tried that I contemplated for quite some time. I won't even say that I tried. There are so many times in the morning I just on the water, I'm just staring at the water like I'm going in. So once I touch the cold water, I was like, gosh, this is not today. I turn it to warm. This is my confession. Or maybe that I go to the warm water first, then I turn to cold. Okay, this is not bad. At least I have the warm first. And then, yeah, I just kind of, how do you even
Do you know
get
what?
into that mode?
I forget to talk about cold showers, because I've been cold showering for such a long time, 6 years maybe. So I forget, and I think part of me presumes everybody is cold water showering. Man, if you're not, you're missing a trick. You gotta be doing it. It's so good. So yeah, in the city, you know, you wanna. Now, I'll have my hot shower first. I'll have my hot shower. I'll get washed. I'll enjoy the hot shower, because, you know, life is a little bit of yin and yang anyway.
Okay.
But I will always end on a nice cold shower, and then I'll stay under for at least 2 minutes. Ideally, in order to get the physical benefits as well as the mental and emotional ones, you want to be doing at least 2 minutes. And there are so many wonderful benefits. Some of the ones that I've noticed personally, I noticed one recently, even though I've been doing it for many, many years. If you start the day with a hot shower and you don't switch it to cold, then turning off the hot shower and getting out of that shower is quite difficult. Part of your brain wants to stay in the shower because it's nice and warm. That means part of your brain doesn't want to get stuck into the day. Whereas if you switch to a cold shower and you have your 2 minutes in a cold shower, when you get out, you're like, yes, I'm out of the shower and I'm into the day. So that in itself, I only had that realization. I only had that realization recently. But you do get this. It starts you on this front foot. You know, you're like, yeah, great, I've done my cold shower. One of the other things that it does, which is not talked about a lot, but I know about this because my profession is that I'm a designer. So I'm an interior designer. So we know quite a lot about feng shui, and we know a lot about geopathic stress. So geopathic stress is basically the stress that we all pick up from our surroundings, often from the earth. But we'll pick it up a lot at the moment from electricity. So if you're close to electricity lines, you're going to pick up a lot of geopathic stress.
So how do you spell geopathic?
Geopathic is GEOPATHIC, I think. So geopathic.
Okay.
Goes back a
Geopathic.
long way, you know. If we go back 100 or maybe 200 years, I couldn't tell you exactly how many years, we would never build a house or any property on any land that had geopathic stress. The thing about geopathic stress, and I was just about to say that in the past, we would never build buildings on a site that had geopathic stress. And there would be people that do water divining. They're doing the same thing. They can test the land to see whether or not it's a good place to build a property, because obviously as human beings, we're affected so much by that. That's not really happening anymore in this world of endless sort of progression and money fueled sort of progression. houses and buildings are just going up wherever it makes financial sense. So people are living on land that has geopathic stress. One of the few things that can clear geopathic stress and can reset our bodies is a cold water shower. So cold water can reset you. So you want to be doing it at least once a day. And then on top of that, you've got all of the other stuff that Wim Hof talks about. We've got, it's going to improve your vascular level, your vascular fitness on a much deeper level. By that I mean, it's all of your arteries and your veins which are transporting blood around the body. Now, if we've become very lazy as a society, we're constantly on the search for comfort, and in that state of comfort, our body stops doing as much as it should be doing. So the heart is actually doing all of the work. The vascular system is not helping to pump the blood around. Now, when you go into cold water, the vascular system all starts coming to life as part of this fight or flight mechanism. So it's helping the heart. Everything's helping, which makes you so much fitter, so much healthier. So many amazing reasons to have a cold water shower. Don't go into any moment of contemplation. If you go past 5 seconds of contemplation as to whether or not you're going to turn that tap, your body will probably win. Your mind will win. The chimp will win. He's the one saying no, and he'll win. So don't give it 5 seconds. You just got to go right.
Okay. Oh,
I think everybody should be doing that minimum.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start that right away. The next day. Yeah. Well,
you'll learn to love it.
It's really helpful for you to say that, because I thought that cold shower is just upright. You wake up, you go in the cold shower straight away, no questions asked, and that is really challenging. But if you could say that, if you could go into hot shower first and then we sequenced it into the cold, it's doable, way doable. Yeah.
We don't have to make everything so difficult that it's uncomfortable. We have to also look at the balance of life. We have to look at yin and yang. We have to look at hot and cold. We have to look at cozy versus exposed. Now we've gone too far into the world of cozy. We're obsessed with comfort. Everything is supposed to be about comfort, and easier. That's the problem. We've got that covered. What we need to be doing is we need exposure to the elements. We need to get cold. We need to get tired. We need to get all of these other things to make, light and dark work. And I think that for a lot of people is the kind of root cause of a lot of their depression and their sadness and their mental health problems. It's this relentless search for comfort,
Yeah, I think the duality of life comes in too, whereby you need to have the discomfort in order to experience the other spectrum. I like the part about how all of these are connected to our societal health, because when we advance as a society, we started to look for experiences that give us positive emotions coming, or maybe we lead a much more hedonistic lifestyle. We seek for comfort. We want fluffy plush material so that we could pamper ourselves after one long day. But after all, we seem to get addicted to the process of wanting more. And the more comfortable we get, we become less resilient. It's interesting because once we talk about this topic, it immediately reminds me of how we go on Google. So we Googled for comfort, and you can see pictures appearing showcasing first class airline, private jets. You have sports cars, comfortable sofas, and everything seems to suggest a luxurious, comfortable life. But when we Google the opposite of comfort, which is discomfort, we start to see pictures of people holding their faces in pain, tears rolling down their cheeks, holding maybe their injured being bandaged. And it seems to suggest that comfort is attached and associated with the exterior side of things, which is very extrinsic, that what we are chasing for. But yet, the discomfort seems to suggest that everything happens internally within us. And that, to me, seems like a disjointed way of looking at things, because where are we going with this? You know? Yeah. So Chris, exactly
that's
what you said.
yeah, I've never thought about it exactly like that, and that is a very, very clever and astute way of looking at it, or it's a great thing you've noticed there, because I think you're right. I think they're seeing comfort as external and discomfort as internal. And you can have external comfort and external discomfort, and you can have internal comfort and internal discomfort. But you're right, we've mixed and matched it wrongly, because we're talking, I think you probably need a healthy mix of both, but what we've been talking about, I suppose, is external discomfort, like getting yourself into a state of external discomfort. There's no sadness involved with that. There's not necessarily any trauma involved with like a daily process of putting yourself into an uncomfortable position. And it's so important, I mean, the way that Wim Hof talks about it as well, about how we're connecting to our sort of primal selves, the wild animal within us, the wild animal that can endure so much more than we can, so much more cold and sort of pain. And by endlessly striving for comfort, all we're doing is we're just turning ourselves into the sort of the most feeble version of a human being that's ever existed. And of course people are going to then be struggling. They're struggling from fear. They start becoming scared of everything. And I think that what you've noticed is could be part of the problem, as is so true of so many things. It's the narrative, isn't it? It's the story that we're being fed that it's causing so many of the problems. Like we began, one of the things that we both agreed on at the beginning of this podcast is that neither of us watch the news. You said that you need to stay abreast of current affairs because of the industry that you work in. And I also try to stay abreast of current affairs, but I don't watch the news because I don't want to be fed that particular narrative. It's the spin that they put on it that I don't want to be. I'm not. It's not. It's not a Brave New World. It's not 1984, and I don't want to be one of the numbers. I don't want to get a number and get in line. So yeah, that is such a big problem right now.
Yeah.
So one of the main reasons that we're all having these podcasts is to discuss this kind of the inherent problems that are coming with the society that we've created, and noticing that so much of it is wrong. Yeah. I think it's only within the last 40 years we've realized this is not a positive, long-term and sustainable route that we're taking. This is overly destructive. This is overly indulgent. And it's not going to work long term. So I think we're partly all discussing as well what we're going to do to change it and how we're going to change it.
Speaking of sustainability, I know you have more to share with us regarding what you have done to create a much more sustainable lifestyle for yourself, and even it was extended to your employees, and I'm sure even the extension to a wider community as well. But let's leave that for the next episode for now. And thank you so much, Chris, and thank you for sharing your story and for getting naked with happiness with us. And one important thing that I've taken away from this is that I will try out the cold showers as part of a practice of doing being. And thank you for being part of the show. I look forward to chatting with you very soon. And for those who are listening, if you have any thoughts, ideas, questions that you would like to highlight, please reach out to me at Getting Naked with Happiness Facebook page, or of course Instagram, Getting Naked with Happiness. And thank you for joining me today. And thank you, Chris, for being on the show.